Ever wonder how a quiet little Christmas movie from the 80s ended up becoming the holiday tradition we practically watch on autopilot every December? A Christmas Story looks charming on the surface, but behind that cozy glow are strange choices, unexpected challenges, and secrets most fans never hear about. Today, we're uncovering the weird details that turn this small film into a timeless favorite. Fact 1. The movie nearly launched quietly into obscurity. When A Christmas Story first hit theaters in 1983, the studio didn't see anything special in it. They gave it a tiny marketing push, released it quietly, and then pulled it from most theaters before Christmas even arrived. A strange fate for a holiday movie. Audiences barely had a chance to discover it. For a moment, it seemed destined to disappear like countless overlooked mid-budget films of the era. But everything changed once television got involved. When cable channels began airing the movie regularly, viewers suddenly connected with its nostalgic charm, and the slow-building love turned it into a seasonal staple. Those TV marathons, especially the now iconic 24-hour Christmas Day loop, rescued the film from fading away and helped cement it as a holiday tradition for generations. But its strange journey didn't stop there. Fact 2. Ralphie's house was real and later rebuilt by a superfan. The Parker family home wasn't a Hollywood set. It was a real house in Cleveland chosen because its layout and look perfectly matched the nostalgic vibe the filmmakers wanted. Years after the movie's release, a devoted fan stumbled upon the property listed on eBay and decided to buy it outright. Instead of simply renovating it, he went all in, meticulously transforming the interior to match the film's Toronto sets with almost obsessive accuracy. Every floorboard, every doorknob, every detail was reconstructed to feel like stepping straight into Ralphie's world. Once the restoration was complete, the house opened to the public as a fully immersive museum, quickly becoming a pilgrimage site for fans eager to relive their favorite scenes. Visitors can tour the rooms, pose with props, and even stay overnight, turning the home into one of the most recognizable movie landmarks in the country. And speaking of dedication, Fact 3. Peter Billingsley still owns key props from the film. Most child actors walk away from a movie with memories and maybe a few behind-the-scenes photos, but Peter Billingsley ended up keeping some of the most iconic pieces from A Christmas Story. What makes it even better is that he didn't save them himself. His mother quietly tucked them away long before anyone realized the film would become a holiday classic. Among the items preserved were the unforgettable pink bunny suit, the Red Ryder BB gun gifted to him by the filmmakers, and the cowboy outfit used during Ralphie's daydream sequences. These props became priceless relics as the movie grew in popularity over the years. Billingsley occasionally lends them for museum exhibits or anniversary events, but most of the time they remain safely stored, protected from damage and overhandling. They serve as personal reminders of a film he made as a kid that unexpectedly evolved into a beloved seasonal tradition. And speaking of things preserved with surprising care, Fact 4. The leg lamp didn't survive filming. The legendary leg lamp, one of the most recognizable symbols from A Christmas Story, was never a store-bought piece. It was designed specifically for the movie, inspired by a quirky memory Gene Shepard once described involving an old advertisement featuring a woman's leg. The production team handcrafted multiple lamps using fiberglass, fishnet stockings, and a custom-molded leg to achieve the perfect blend of elegance and outrageousness. But while the lamp looked sturdy on screen, reality was a different story. Every single version built for filming eventually broke. Some shattered during rehearsals, others during scenes where characters handled it. And the most dramatic destruction came during the famous accident sequence, which used an actual breakable prop. By the time shooting wrapped, not a single original lamp remained intact. This unexpected disappearance is why every leg lamp seen today, whether in museums or fan collections, is a replica created long after production ended. The original props were simply too fragile to survive their own fame. And speaking of iconic movie moments that required clever tricks, Fact 5. Flick's famous tongue scene was pure movie magic. The unforgettable moment when Flick gets his tongue frozen to a metal pole is so convincing that generations of kids have tried recreating it, only to learn the hard way that real poles in winter aren't nearly as forgiving. But on set, the scene was crafted with careful movie trickery. Instead of using an actual frozen surface, the crew built a specially designed pole with a tiny hidden hole connected to a suction device. When Scott Schwartz placed his tongue on the spot, the gentle vacuum created the perfect illusion of being stuck, allowing him to act panicked while staying completely safe. Between takes, he could pull away easily whenever the suction stopped. The rest of the scene's humor, his muffled protests, the frantic arm flailing, and the shocked reactions, came entirely from performance, not discomfort. The clever setup worked so well that many fans assumed the filmmakers used real freezing conditions. In reality, no harm was ever close to happening. The illusion was just that effective. And speaking of clever setups that fooled audiences, Fact 6. Ralphie beat thousands of kids for the role. Landing the role of Ralphie wasn't just another audition. It was a marathon that stretched across the US and Canada. More than 8,000 kids tried out, each hoping to be the one wearing those oversized glasses and delivering the now iconic wish for a Red Ryder BB gun. Peter Billingsley was already somewhat known thanks to commercials, which initially made the director hesitate. He worried Peter might seem too familiar to audiences. Still, he put him in the mix with thousands of fresh faces, determined to explore every option. After months of reading lines, testing expressions, and watching endless hopeful kids reenact Ralphie's daydreams, the choice finally became clear. Billingsley had the perfect blend of innocence, humor, and mischief, qualities that made the character feel real instead of exaggerated. Despite all the competition, he stood out from the very beginning. Looking back, it's hard to imagine anyone else owning the role so naturally. And speaking of casting decisions that almost went a completely different direction, Fact 7. A major Hollywood star almost played the old man. It's almost impossible to picture anyone other than Darren McGavin battling the furnace, muttering under his breath, and proudly displaying that questionable major award. But before he stepped into the role, the studio had its eye on someone far more famous, Jack Nicholson. At the time, Nicholson was one of Hollywood's biggest names, and he reportedly showed genuine interest in joining the film. The idea excited executives, who imagined a major star boosting the movie's profile. But the creative team worried his presence would overshadow the story. A Christmas Story was meant to feel grounded, like a slice of ordinary childhood, not a celebrity-driven spectacle. Nicholson's intense screen persona, while iconic, didn't match the subtle chaos the role required. Ultimately, the part went to McGavin, whose warm, frantic, perfectly imperfect performance helped define the movie's charm. His relatable energy grounded the family dynamic in a way a marquee actor simply couldn't. And speaking of roles that balance chaos and authenticity, Fact 8, the Chinese restaurant scene, captured real reactions. The Christmas dinner at the Chinese restaurant is one of the movie's most memorable moments, thanks to its blend of awkwardness, charm, and pure comedic timing. But what many fans don't realize is how much of that magic came from genuine surprise. Melinda Dillon, who played Ralphie's mom, wasn't told what the duck would look like before filming. When the waiter presented the bird with its head still attached, her startled gasp and tearful laughter were completely authentic, creating the perfect mix of shock and humor the scene needed. The now famous fa-ra-ra singing was scripted, but the cast played it with such sincerity that it felt improvised. That combination of planning and real emotional reactions gave the moment its uniquely chaotic flavor, something no amount of rehearsing could replicate. It's a scene that feels spontaneous because, in many ways, it was. And speaking of moments that seemed effortless but took careful planning, Fact 9, the soap punishment was real in spirit, but not in practice. The scene where Ralphie gets a bar of Lifebuoy shoved into his mouth feels painfully authentic, and that's because it was inspired directly by Gene Shepard's real childhood experiences. In the 1940s, having your mouth washed out with soap was a common punishment, and Shepard remembered it vividly enough to include it in his stories. But when it came time to film the moment, the crew knew better than to put a child actor through something so harsh. Instead of using actual soap, they created a custom bar made of safe, non-toxic wax, dyed to match the original Lifebuoy color. Peter Billingsley has often joked that the taste wasn't great, but it was far better than the real thing. The scene works because it captures the emotional truth of the memory while avoiding any real discomfort. It's a perfect example of how the movie blended honest nostalgia with thoughtful filmmaking. And speaking of moments pulled from real life, but handled with care, Fact 10, filming at Higbee's came with strict rules and odd hours. Higbee's department store wasn't just a backdrop, it was a real, fully operating holiday hotspot in downtown Cleveland, which made filming inside it both a privilege and a challenge. Most major stores refused requests from the production, but Higbee's agreed under one condition. The crew had to follow strict guidelines. That meant absolutely no profanity anywhere on the premises, not even the old man's famously creative muttering. To avoid disrupting shoppers during the busy holiday season, the cast and crew were limited to filming early in the morning and late at night, often working through chilly hours when the store was closed. The parade scene outside was shot around 3 in the morning, giving it that authentic, sleepy, wintry charm. Higbee's even kept its Christmas decorations up weeks past the holiday, so the team could get every shot they needed. Many of the extras were real employees and locals, adding to the grounded feel of those scenes. And speaking of real people shaping the movie's legacy, Fact 11, Ralphie and Farkas took surprisingly different paths after the film. While A Christmas Story became a yearly tradition, the lives of its young stars moved in unexpected directions. Peter Billingsley, who played Ralphie, didn't chase a typical child actor career. Instead, he shifted behind the camera, building long-term collaborations with Jon Favreau and Vince Vaughn. Over the years, he produced major hits like Elf, Iron Man, and The Breakup, eventually stepping into writing and directing. His return as adult Ralphie in A Christmas Story Christmas felt like a full-circle moment fans had been waiting for. Meanwhile, Zach Ward, the once menacing Scott Farkas, took a wildly different path. After continuing to act in films and TV series, he expanded into business, eventually becoming the CEO of a sports finance startup. His combination of acting experience and entrepreneurial drive created a career far removed from his childhood bully days. Interestingly, Ward also reprised his role in the modern sequel, giving fans a glimpse of a reformed Farkas. Their contrasting journeys show how two kids from the same holiday movie carved out entirely different legacies. And speaking of legacies hidden in plain sight, Fact 12, the director hid subtle nods to his other films throughout the movie. Bob Clark had one of the most unpredictable resumes in Hollywood, jumping from horror to comedy to family films, and he couldn't resist slipping tiny winks to his past work into A Christmas Story. Long before bringing Ralphie's world to life, Clark directed Porky's and the cult horror classic Black Christmas. Sharp-eyed fans later noticed that certain stylistic touches in A Christmas Story quietly echo those earlier projects. Some visual choices, like the snowy nighttime exterior shots, feel vaguely reminiscent of Black Christmas, almost like Clark was weaving a faint atmospheric signature into scenes that otherwise seem innocent. He also included playful nods to Porky's, mostly through props and tone, though nothing overt enough to distract from the story. These Easter eggs weren't meant to draw attention. They were simply inside jokes left for anyone familiar with his career. It's a reminder that even in a nostalgic holiday movie, Clark was still having fun as a filmmaker, layering small personal touches beneath the warmth and humor. And speaking of small touches that made a big impact, Fact 13, the Bumpus Hounds were trained pros, not wild chaos. The infamous Bumpus Hounds might look like a stampede of uncontrolled backyard troublemakers, but the truth behind the scene is much more organized than it appears. Despite decades of rumors suggesting the production simply rounded up local strays, the dogs were actually trained animal actors hired specifically for the sequence. Each dog knew its cues, but director Bob Clark wanted the moment to feel naturally chaotic, so the trainers were instructed to loosen their control just enough to let the pack behave more freely. Once they were released toward the Parker family's Christmas turkey, their instincts kicked in, creating the messy, frantic rush that made the scene unforgettable. Furniture got bumped, crew members had to dodge excited paws, and the set briefly felt like a canine whirlwind. But it was all within safe, controlled limits. The result was a perfect blend of real energy and professional training, giving audiences a moment that looked hilariously accidental. And speaking of filming moments that audiences never realized were carefully crafted, Fact 14, a full flash, Gordon fantasy scene, was filmed, then completely cut. One of the wildest lost moments from A Christmas Story is a fully produced Flash Gordon fantasy sequence that never made it into the final cut. Ralphie, already known for his imaginative daydreams, was originally supposed to blast off into a full sci-fi adventure. The production built an entire space-themed set on a separate soundstage, complete with alien landscapes, props, costumes, and even actors playing Flash Gordon and Ming the Merciless. Ralphie, dressed in a shiny child-sized spacesuit, was meant to save the galaxy with his Red Ryder BB gun, firing at cosmic villains in a playful, over-the-top sequence. But despite the time, effort, and significant portion of the film's modest budget spent on it, the scene was ultimately removed for pacing. Only the credits, where the Flash Gordon actors are still listed, hint that it ever existed. Today, fans can only imagine how that surreal detour would have looked, and with that final lost moment uncovered, the story of this quirky classic becomes even more fascinating. A Christmas Story may look like a simple holiday movie, but its behind-the-scenes history is packed with odd choices, forgotten details, and unexpected twists that shaped it into the classic we revisit every year. From lost scenes to legendary props, every piece adds another layer to its charm, and the more we uncover, the clearer it becomes why this modest little film refuses to fade.